You know, it's always nice to pass on to your grandchildren your thoughts, your ideas, what you did with your life, what your values were, and the things that you passed through. But it's usually difficult when you have a family reunion. It's just too hectic to sit around and muse about these little stories that you have of your life and your values and what you did and what you thought about, so that you never really get to pass them on at that time. Through this method, you know, at your leisure and at their leisure, these things can then be recorded and they can have some feeling for what you were and what you meant and what you did and what you thought. It's worth doing, and I recommend it to anybody.
I'm glad my grandfather recorded his personal history because I have this wonderful opportunity to connect with the man that he is, not just my grandfather, but Norman Maxfield, and to have such a great, valuable collection of memories and stories that not only I can have, but I can pass down to my kids and to their kids, and they can have this wonderful archive of where they've come from and the people that they can aspire to be like.
By watching the interview, I learned all kinds of details about his childhood growing up in New York, specific geographic locations where he lived, where he went to school, and using Google like it is today, I instantly was on the computer looking up his house, it's still there, what it looks like, things like that. His childhood, how he met my grandmother, where his family came from, how they ended up where they did in New York, and then his personal history in the military, from when he joined in World War II all the way through when he got out after Vietnam, and all the details in between about where his family moved, and all my aunts and uncles, where they were born, and how the whole personal history fit together. Because over the time when I was growing up, we'd get little snippets either from my parents or my aunts and uncles or my grandfather himself, just little stories here and there. But for me, it was really hard to put it all together into one continuous timeline. And so through the video, going chronologically from beginning to end, it makes it a lot easier to understand at what point this person was born, and then we moved here, and then I did this job, because I've heard about all these different things that he's done, and obviously I know all of my aunts and uncles, but it's been really hard to put it all together, and so now I can really understand how it all unfolded from when he was a child till today, and when I really have memories of him from maybe 10 years ago.
My memories of my childhood and growing up in Pennsylvania and in New York, and for my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren, and maybe even my great-great-grandchildren. I wish that I could see my mother's face and hear her voice again. We talked on the phone so often. She lived in Minnesota, me in New York, so we had wonderful telephone conversations, and I just am sorry that she didn't do this.
I think family members should record their personal history because it gives them an opportunity to speak to their grandchildren and their great-grandchildren and everyone who comes after them who might not have an opportunity to sit down and speak with them. Myself, I think I only met one of my great-grandparents, one of four, and the memories I have a face that I can remember, and I've seen pictures, and that's pretty much it. I never, I was an infant, so I never spoke to that person, and through this recording I was able to really get a good idea of the life that my grandfather lived, and it's something that I'll have that I can give to my own children, and they'll be able to understand the life that he lived, you know, whether they meet him or they don't, you know. And even if they do, they'll probably only be small, you know, kids who will never really be able to understand, you know, the things that he's done and where he came from. But through the recording, they can really get an understanding for where they've come from and the life that he lived, probably, you know, 100 years before they were around. So I think that's something that's really invaluable in this day and age.